Television at Ram Aguko, which is my name. If at all you've just joined us, this is a show that gives you each and every kind of content, entertainment, and each and everything. Now, we are shifting gears into matters politics from, of course, Sifuna when she was talking about lifestyle. It is all about crosstalk, referendum. I'm joined in studio, but next to it, Daniel Kibet, political analyst. And of course, we have Fredrick Okango, the Secretary General for Thirdway Alliance Party, Kenya. And of course, Edwin Sifuna, who is the Secretary General for ODM Party. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
If at all you'd like to engage with us, the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. First, we didn't, because of this issue of the referendum, do you think that we are derailing the president's Big Four agenda for development in the country? Certainly.
Thank you so much. Yeah, for sure we are derailing the progress of the Big Four agenda. One thing that we need to understand is the president is trying to achieve a couple of things apart from the Big Four agenda. He's also trying to achieve the problem of corruption that we've been having in the couple of years. So if we are introducing the issue of referendum, it will derail the progress of the Big Four agenda. But true, for us to achieve the Big Four agenda, we need to address also the issue of the constitutional reforms. There are certain things that in our constitution we need to change for us to achieve the issues that are being addressed in the Big Four agenda. But now the problem is, how are we going to address those issues, the Big Four agenda issues, by doing a referendum? I don't understand how basically we are going to address the issue of high cost of living by going to a referendum. So
we must disrupt the development issues of the president first?
No, we can't disrupt the development issues of the president first. Those are the crucial things that needs to be addressed. Issues like food security, universal health care, affordable housing, those are issues that you can't derail. And each mwananchi wants those issues to be addressed first. But the issue of punguza mizigo that has been addressed by NC and our party, ODM, it's a good issue. It's a good issue. But now the problem is they haven't raised to us what is the referendum question.
We will come there.
Yeah.
We'll come there.
Yeah.
Let me get it from you. Are we derailing the development of the country?
First of all, thank you for having me. I get very amused by some of the questions that we get from hosts like yourself, because Kenyans can walk and chew gum at the same time. Even my colleague here, when he postulates that it will interfere with the Big Four, he has not told us how. It is possible for you to chew sugar cane and ride a bicycle at the same time. Kenyans have the capacity to do that.
Do we have the finances to cater for?
We will get to that, but this is what we are saying. The conversation about amendment of the Constitution is not happening in cabinet, for instance, that you will say it has derailed the agenda of cabinet. It has not stopped anyone from kukoroga kokoto ya kujenga nyumba. So we need, for those of us who are telling us that it will derail, they need to tell us how it will derail. Because you see, there are people who can only deal with hardware stuff in this country. When you hear them talking, they only talk about construction of roads, extension of electricity, the hardware. But we have gotten to a stage in this country where we have identified that the software of this country is fundamentally flawed, and it is the reason why we still talk about connecting electricity and building roads 50 plus years after independence. We need people who can converse about the national ethos in this country. We need people who can deal with the question of inclusivity, the question of tribalism and corruption. That is the reason why we have not gotten electricity to reach everywhere. So those of us who have capacity to deal with the software and the hardware at the same time should be allowed to do that. If you are only wired to build roads and houses, by all means, proceed.
But you are also aware that questions like this are
Yes.
the ones that made even the deputy president to say that the talk of the referendum is idle talk.
The deputy president is the leader of the band that only deals with hardware stuff. He has no capacity. When Kenyans sit down to have a serious conversation about why we are the way we are as Kenyans, when we want to talk about the issue of inclusivity, why do Kenyans feel left out of mainstream development in this country? Who is it that we are as Kenyans? When you go out there and you say you're a Kenyan, what is the first thing that comes to the mind of a person that you're talking about? If we have to fundamentally examine the fabric of this society, these are not spaces where people like the deputy president can actually occupy. And you know, we understand when people insist on the hardware, because you see, conversations about a national ethos do not have kickbacks and percentages for people to make money. There is no money you can make out of a conversation of why are people feeling left out. But of course, there are percentages that can be earned from construction of low-cost housing. That is why there are some people who only thrive in that area. So but for us, we are clear.
You dismiss the president's capacity.
The deputy president has no capacity to engage in a conversation about the national ethos of Kenya.
And we get it from you. Development agenda for the country.
Thank you. I'm very disappointed that Kibet does not understand that for you to lower the cost of living, then you also have to look at the supreme law, that is the Constitution of Kenya. And I'm also disappointed that he doesn't know who are the real people pushing the Punguza Mizigo. It's not ODM, it's not ANC. Now, having said that, I would want to say that for you to lower the cost of living, then you also must ensure that you make certain units of development as the primary units to accelerate that development, and those are the wards. And we have said, the people living in the country today, in this Kenya, they would want to see certain things in their localities. These are schools, roads, hospitals, and so on and so forth. They cannot see that if there are people at the executive stealing the same money that should go to them. Number two, the people at the executive cannot earn more than what they should earn to deny the same people that they lead the same services that they want. And that's why we have proposed that why don't we now use the ward as a unit of development? Number two, we have said, because there's what we call theft of public money, Jubilee government has demonstrated that they can loot this country. And that has been reported by you, the people of the media. It has been seen in courts. The cases are all over. We say now it is time to even look at how do we ensure that we control or we stop theft in totality. Jailing those people that are convicted of corruption cases, even to life. We have also said, the commissioners of this country, why are they still serving on full time? Why don't we have part-time commissioners?
Okay.
I'm trying to tell you that what Kenya need most now is to fix the main issue of inclusivity that, by the way, Aguko, inclusivity does not only mean that you bring all people to government. Inclusivity means the Kenyan people can access the services that they ought to access, and that is provided by the Constitution. And that's why we are saying the Big Four agenda by the president is a good idea, but it cannot be achieved if the people down there are not able to access. If you bring affordable housing, and these people are poor, how will they afford those houses? We are talking about universal health care. How will they afford universal health care while their pockets are empty? That's why the Constitution, Aguko, must be amended to ensure that, number one, the people at the devolved units have access to the basics. Today, they don't have access to the basics, most of them. So the Constitution amendment or the push does not interfere with any development agenda in this country. In fact, the president needs that constitution amended like yesterday so that he can ensure that he leave a better legacy in the next election.
You mentioned something, and I don't know what you guys would say. Do we have the standard rates of earning that you say that the executive is earning more than what they ought to earn?
The standard earning is determined by SRC. But we know, why do we need a president earning 2 million while he has a free car, free security, free house, and the rest? Why do we need that? We don't need, why do we need members of parliament earning millions while they also provided with certain things that they can, that can accommodate them? What we are saying is, we are at a crunch time. This economy is collapsing. It's collapsing because of theft, not even because of who is earning what.
Now,
the money that we have, Kenya is a very rich country. Look at a budget of 3.8 trillion. 54% of that budget, 2018-2019, is going into the executive alone. And only a small percentage is going into the counties. And we are proposing, why don't we even increase the revenue allocation to the counties? Because that is where the majority of the people of Kenya live.
Don't you think for us to go to referendum as a country, you say Kenyans can walk and chew at the same time? Won't it also affect the, it's like, a Kenyan, you cannot drive and use a cell phone at the same time, regardless of it. We have an economic status of the country that is going down. Won't their referendum affect our economic status?
I don't think that it will, and you will have to show me the linkage between those two events, because it is a conversation that people are having. It's the way that we are having this conversation in this studio. It does not stop other departments of KBC from running. We are here, we are proposing to have a conversation about this formative document that we call the Constitution, and whether it is working for us. And you know, where we differ slightly with the people from the Thirdway Alliance is that they have taken a very simplistic view, and we understand why they have taken that view, that they are calling it punguza mzigo, and they have targeted the representatives of the people, because it is something that is very easy to sell to the wananchi, especially at this particular time when you know, people are very annoyed.
You'd say they are misleading wananchi?
No, I have not said they are misleading wananchi. I've said they have taken on a proposal. They are saying punguza mzigo, because they know it is very popular with the local mwananchi to attack the representatives of the people. But we need to have a critical discussion as to the reasons why we are proposing a constitutional amendment. We are not just talking about cutting the number of members of parliament or members of the county assembly. A report was released yesterday, for instance, that even when he talks about the commissions, that the presidency alone spends more money, or is allocated more money, than the entire commissions combined. So the problem really is not that the commissions exist or that they have X number of commissioners. The conversation that we began as ODM and as the opposition, the official opposition, is that we came from somewhere. We got to somewhere in March when the accord was struck between Raila Odinga and Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta. And if you look at that agreement, it identified certain issues that the two leaders identified as the main reasons as to where we are today after all these years after independence. So if you are going to look, for instance, at the issue of inclusivity, inclusivity is a matter that is a constitutional matter under Article 10. It is provided for. Why is it that even after providing for this particular concept or national principle, we still have complaints about lack of inclusivity? If you talk about divisive elections, we are essentially having a conversation about representation of the people. Why is it that elections are so acrimonious? What is the root cause of all these fights during election time? If you want to have a discussion about devolution, for instance, whether it is working, the economic and political viability of the units that we created, these are creatures of the Constitution. It essentially entails a conversation about amendment of the Constitution.
As ODM party,
yes,
with reference with
yes,
Thirdway Alliance party,
yes,
what are you bringing to the table that you'd say that would be better than what they offer?
First of all, theirs is a very simplistic approach, and this is what I was trying to explain. You cannot view the Constitution from a single perspective. We have had a wholesome experience, and this is what I was bringing to you. We have many issues to look at. We have struggled with the issue of ensuring gender balance in the Houses of Parliament. It is an issue that needs to be relooked at because it is a creature of the Constitution. We have spoken about devolution, and you remember last time when we tried to propose a constitutional amendment, we had even proposed an increase in the minimum allocations that go to the counties. We want Kenyans to have a conversation about the experiences with this document.
Would you touch the number of representatives?
As we speak right now, we have not reduced the singular issues to a single proposition. It is a conversation that people are having, and that is why we are saying, let us have the conversation. You cannot stop Kenyans from having a conversation. Let those who feel that they are not wired to have a discussion about the national ethos of Kenya continue with the business that they want to continue with. It is not a must. It is not, nobody is forcing you. But at the end of the day, you cannot also stop Kenyans from having a conversation.
But it is the same party, ODM, where some are saying that we should take a break and hold the referendum at the 2022 elections.
And that is the beauty of ODM. I laugh at times when people criticize us for lacking democracy, yet you yourself are citing an example where we actually allow people to ventilate, to air their views. At the end of the day, that is what democracy is about. But people will air because, as I have told you, We have not reduced the issue to a single position and said, this is the position of ODM. We are still having a conversation even amongst ourselves, and people will give differing views and differing points of view.
I'll come back to you. Do you think that, based on what you say, do you think you understand the initiatives that they are saying, that you would actually say that this point has a weakness and this point does not have?
Thank you so much. Now, Thirdway Alliance, they're addressing only one issue. They're addressing the issue of overrepresentation. True, we are overrepresented. I don't dispute that. But now the problem is, how will it go? How will it solve our economic problems? The amount of money that they will save as Thirdway Alliance in their proposal in our economy, I'll approach this in an economic perspective, is about 36 billion. But our recurrent expenditure per year is about 650 billion. So Aguko, if you do your maths clearly, it means overrepresentation is not the issue that's fighting our economy.
So they're actually not solving the problem.
They're not solving the problem. 36 billion out of 650 billion, that's not the issue.
So he understands
how about, relax, how about we go and sit down and see this other amount of money apart from the 36 billion that they're trying to save per year. Where is the problem coming from? The problem is corruption. Unconstitutional amendments cannot solve corruption.
You know, Aguko, this morning I'm a very disappointed Kenyan, because you see, we have put down 15 cogent reasons. One of the reasons is overrepresentation. We all agree that we are overrepresented.
But he says it is not actually the factor.
That our major proposal is the money that is misappropriated at the executive. And that money, we would want it to go to the smallest unit of development, the ward. People have been talking about, you know, when you talk about punguza mizigo is not about lowering the representation alone. No. In fact, we have looked at it and said the mizigo that Kenyans are carrying is a mizigo of walking kilometers to go and look for school, walking kilometers to go and look for water, walking kilometers to go and look for Medicare. That is a bigger mizigo. That mizigo can only be lowered if we bring those services closer to the people. And one of the objects of devolution...
Do we lack services as of now?
Are there. We have services, but they are not adequate to the extent that the Kenyan people can say, today we are enjoying this. And that's why we want to strengthen that devolution by increasing the funds that go to the devolved units. But at the same time, protect that money because it has been stolen. And I gave an example. I said, Jubilee government today as it is, they have demonstrated to Kenyans that they are not able to protect, to cushion Kenyans from theft. That is a fact. We are saying that we have proof. We have proof, and the proof is in the courts. You have seen people being arraigned in courts for theft? Yes. Is that not a proof enough, Aguko? It is. Now, let me tell you another thing.
You disagree.
But someone is...
No, listen. You know, Chief, I want you to understand what punguza mizigo is.
I want to understand.
You don't understand it, so please listen to me. Okay. And I want to educate you shortly.
Okay.
You know, this issue of people talking about, Thirdway is talking about overrepresentation, it's a lie. Because that is not the issue. The issue, the main issue is how the money that people are supposed to use for development is misappropriated. And we have connected that to leadership. Theft and leadership in this country can now be connected.
So Fred,
a section of the leaders are thieves. And we have said that money, I'll give you an example. The Revenue Allocation Bill number 7 of 2018, when the members of parliament decided to use unconstitutional, accounts that were not most recent. The Constitution says most recent audit accounts of 2013, 2014, where the national government collected 900 billion. Instead of 1.4 trillion in the most recent 2016, 2017, they denied your county over 500 billion in totality. That money ought to have gone to the devolved units.
But you know that is the reason why.
Allow me to finish. Then, Sifuna has talked about something that is very interesting. They have not agreed on what are the issues because people are still having a conversation. We have started the conversation. We hope at some point...
You disagree?
No, you said they have not agreed. We have put reasons. Those reasons, majority of those reasons, Kenyans have agreed with them. And that's why today we are at over 617 60,000 signatures. Those are people that you cannot ignore because they want change as Thirdway, but the people of Kenya, because we are the people leading that initiative.
As Thirdway, do you have a question for the referendum?
Yeah.
The question for the referendum is very simple. And we don't need to have 10 questions. The only question we want to have is, do we agree to amend the Constitution of Kenya? And we have a draft that will be ready the next 2 days.
As ODM, do you...
First of all, the only thing that I can think of when I hear Thirdway Alliance saying they are leading on anything, I mean, that is a joke, because we know for a fact that they have no capacity
but they have
to lead on
600,000.
anything. That is just a story, because, you know, let me tell you, we did the Okoa Kenya initiative.
And they failed.
And I know what it takes to raise 1 million signatures. We raised 1.2 million signatures, but it's a story for another day.
But
we will wait.
They managed to
we
get
will
over
wait.
600,000.
Let me tell you, this is somebody who, Thirdway Alliance were the only opposition party on the ballot during the repeat elections. Yeah. They did not get 15,000 votes. So where is this 600,000 votes that people are talking? They are seeking relevance.
You cannot peg referendum. No, Sifuna, I have to correct you. You cannot peg referendum.
Let him speak first.
I cannot do that. We are talking about your capacity or lack thereof. You cannot lead on anything as Thirdway Alliance.
Just like ODM has
Thirdway Alliance in this country is a nuisance. They are here for nuisance value. I can guarantee you, and I can bet here, I want to say in front of this country, if Thirdway Alliance are able to raise 1 million signatures, I will resign as the Secretary General of ODM. I know for a fact they cannot do it. So this is what I'm telling you. The people know where to look for leadership.
And we will hold you with your word.
Aguko,
I'll be a witness.
This is something that I know. I have said it on national TV.
Aguko.
I know who they are. I know who they are not. The point that I'm making is this.
Sifuna do not know who Thirdway is.
And
I cannot allow him to get away with that.
Let me finish.
ODM has got this entitlement, self-entitlement that is false. We cannot allow this country to be ruled by people who have self-entitlement. Sifuna himself cannot come here and tell people of what to do because he thinks that is from ODM. ODM lost the election.
No.
They have to accept they lost the election. That's why they went to Uhuru Kenyatta. But having said that,
Fred,
that is not the important thing. The
hold
most
on
important thing is let us talk about
Will we
referendum.
also get to speak, or this is a Thirdway Alliance show?
It's not an ODM show either.
I would like him to finish his
Yeah,
story.
so let me finish.
Yes, so let him finish first.
Here is what will happen. You know, even if Thirdway Alliance were allowed to run on their own, they will still lose. Because they have no capacity. Kenyans
during
know,
elections?
Yes. Kenyans know where to look for leadership. And this is why we are saying that even the conversation about constitutional amendment, when he says that Thirdway Alliance are the ones who started that conversation, it's ridiculous. It's on public record that it is a code, the NASA Alliance back then, that actually went all the way and prepared a bill. We are the only coalition.
Same NASA Alliance.
Absolutely. So this is what we are saying. The conversation began with us. And we have invited Kenyans to have this conversation. When we say that as ODM we do not have a position currently on the specifics that we would like to amend, is because we have begun a conversation. This conversation essentially entails a conversation amongst all the Kenyans on the things, their experiences with this constitution. The ideas that he's talking about are not original ideas. When we presented the Okoa Kenya bill, we are the ones who introduced the increase of allocation to the counties. The question of using the most recent accounts, it is us who started that discussion.
Back to ODM. It is in 2010
Yes.
that there was the promulgation of the constitution. And
Yes.
I remember we had a
Yes.
referendum
Yes.
before, and it is the same ODM that was saying that they voted yes.
I did vote for the constitution myself.
The same constitution that you're
Yes.
saying has flaws as of now.
Yes.
Why do we have change of heart?
Do not have amnesia, my brother. When we passed the constitution, it was a general acceptance that it was not a perfect document. In fact, the perfect document was the Bomas document because it was a product of consultation across the country. But it was mutilated. Do you understand? There was a Naivasha draft, there was a Kilifi draft that did away with many of the proposals in the Bomas draft. Even this three-tier devolution system that you hear our party leader talking about, it is not his creation. It was in the Bomas document that we had regional governments at that particular point in time. So when we say we want to relook at this particular document, given that we have had opportunity to interact with this document, to have a view on where the weaknesses are. I will give you a simple example that I give
Let me ask you this question.
Yes.
Did you look at the document before you said yes? These flaws
We
that you're talking
did
about.
look at the document. You know, you must contextualize everything. The fight for a new constitution was a long battle.
Why
it
now?
took about 20 years for us to just get to a point where there was actually a document that could be put to the people. So when
the
it was,
question is,
let me finish. When it was widely acknowledged that yes, we have a document that achieves at least 80% of what we set out to do, but that it is not a perfect document. Let us pass it now. Give unto ourselves this document. It does not foreclose on you the ability to discuss, to talk, to share experiences after you have interacted with the document. So it is true.
By then it was good, but now it's bad. Okay.
No, that's not what you're saying. You are oversimplifying things, and I will not allow you to do that. That's not what we are saying. We are not saying it is bad. We are saying, drawn out of the experiences. I want to give you an example. If we say under Article 10 that it is a national value, inclusivity, that we must see inclusivity across all cadres of government, why is it not happening? We have given ourselves that as a principle. Why is it not happening? Because we have left it to the goodwill of the people in power to actually implement these things. We are saying, should we tie their hands now and even introduce ethnic quotas for us to ensure that every Kenyan feels included? That's a conversation. That's not to say that the document is bad. It can be better, is what we are saying.
The hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter. Keep the conversation going at KBC Television, at Ram Aguko. It is crosstalk this morning. Now, the Senator Kipchumba Murkomen said something here that this issue about the referendum is not going to bring returns to the economy, which is the current topic right now. Yeah. We have increase in taxes. Kenyans are crying. And at the same time, we're talking about the referendum. It's like we're having so many shows and we don't know which one to concentrate on first and which one to concentrate on secondly. Yeah. What is the way forward? How can we move the country?
The way forward is simple. You know, as a country, we have come from a long journey of constitutional amendments, right from 2005 to 2010, to a social economic audit that was done in 2015, to now that we're having a conversation about referendum. Now, constitutional amendment is not an event. That's one thing that we need to understand. You know, an advice that I can give to our colleagues over here is there's a social economic audit report that was tabled in Parliament in 2016, but that was never looked upon. So what if they can go and take that document, try and find the findings that were tabled in that reform document, try and see if they can implement those issues that were addressed in that document.
Do you think these two parties can come to an agreement and say
they can?
They will
their members are in the party. The members they are in the party, so they are in the parliament. So
they are not in parliament.
They're not in parliament.
Yeah.
No. Okay, we shall.
Okay,
so we shall come there later.
So, if they can go and check that document, they can try and solve one issue that has been addressed in that. Secondly, issues with our economy, taxes, they cannot be addressed by constitutional amendments. We need to go for an economic reforms. Economic reforms is try and understand what are we investing in that's not giving us returns. A good example is SGR. I come from that party, Jubilee Party, that has done the SGR, which was initiated by Raila Odinga. But now the problem with SGR, we do have a clear framework of how to implement SGR and other ways that have been working in the system. SGR per se, we are paying about 20 billion in interest, but per year, we are getting a profit of 1 billion.
But so, I believe you were there at that point.
When?
Concerning the issue of the SGR.
Yeah, we are very clear on the SGR. I can tell you anything
but
you want
it has flaws.
It has terrible flaws.
Serious flaws.
Then why did you accept it to continue?
Listen, you want me to go and throw myself in front of a railway so that I stop its construction?
Continue.
Here's what you need to understand about the railway.
Now,
this particular project.
He was talking. Let him finish first.
Okay.
So like SGR, I'll tell you an example. They haven't, as a country, we haven't sat down and there were systems that were working. There were transporting systems that were working. So as a president, he's trying to remove the port from Mombasa to Naivasha. That won't make SGR to work. This is one issue that you need to understand. Secondly, I'll ask our colleague from the Thirdway Alliance. who is going to benefit from the constitutional reforms that you're trying to do? Is it the Wanjiko or is it your party leader?
No.
He will answer that.
Can I answer you?
You can answer.
Our proposal is for the people. Our proposal is not about creating positions. Our proposal is not about bringing people into government. Our proposal is taking that money at the national government that is at 54% only executive to the smallest unit of development. So the people that live in those units are the people going to benefit. Number two, in this country we have got bad manners of thinking that only a select few have got monopoly of ideas. That should stop. And you know, when you think that it's only you who can lead, then you will be misled. It's not possible for a Kenyan of population of 46 million to just believe that only certain individuals must lead. And that's why I disagree with Sifuna when he says Thirdway cannot do anything. I mean, really, let us be honest here. It's not about personality. It's not about worshipping cults. It's not about telling people that they can't. We are at a stage where we need the entire country together.
Do we have personalities and worshipping?
Of course, you can. From the talk, you can hear people are worshipping certain individuals. Unfortunately,
we are not worshipping.
Nobody has worshipped anyone.
Number two,
we're just supporting
we also want to understand that for you to talk about a conversation, you also you don't fail to give, when you are asked a question, give us what you have tabled. Then you go around it like, I mean, really, tell Kenyans what you have. Don't rubbish what other people have done. It has been proven that they have done it, and it has been proven that they're progressing.
Are you rubbishing what they have done because they have done something?
You know,
first of all,
be the host. Eh?
Yes.
So when I'm speaking, just listen to me. You are hosting this show, so don't be distracted by empty noise. What I was saying, Aguko, no, I'll speak.
Listen first. Hold on. You will not speak because I am the host.
Okay.
As you said, I control the panel.
Okay. So can I proceed?
Hold on. Sifuna, would you say that what he says is true, that you're rubbishing what other people are trying to do, yet you are not giving a clear outline?
Let me say this.
They will never.
Leadership is not something that happens in the dark. It is something that happens in the open. All of us who call ourselves leaders are subject to the public scrutiny. What we have questioned, what I have personally questioned this morning, is not what they are proposing. I have asked the question whether Thirdway Alliance has capacity to lead. We all know the leadership of Thirdway Alliance. We know the leadership of ODM. We know my performance as a leader. We know his performance as a leader. We are saying that there are things that Thirdway Alliance cannot do.
What is your performance as a leader?
What is your performance as a leader?
I have not spoken about myself. It is not for me to judge my own performance.
But
I can judge.
I don't know. What is your performance as a leader?
Let me finish.
But you've mentioned yourself.
Let me finish. I have mentioned myself with reference to saying that I am in the public space. I expect to be judged. People know the capacity of Edwin Sifuna.
So allow us to
if
judge
there are
you.
things, if there are things,
being judged well?
Yeah, I can be judged. I don't have a problem with that. So allow us to also judge the other people in the capacities that they hold.
Now let's
so in my estimation,
there is a difference between judging and discrimination.
Listen, in my estimation, knowing what Thirdway Alliance is, if you exist as a reference to the existence of others, so that if there wasn't the first two, there wouldn't be a third. That tells you something. It tells you that this is somebody whose entire existence is built on the existence of others. They are not leaders in any way.
So who's
this is what we are saying. We know the capacity of a party to be able to marshal numbers, to be able to pull through a political referendum. If you cannot get a member of county assembly in any of the wards in this country to be elected, you cannot tell us that you have capacity to lead. You cannot get a single member of parliament to be elected. You have no capacity for leadership.
What is your response to that, Fredrick?
It is very shameful. In fact, we are happy today. Being registered 6 months to election, we are happy today that we don't have any member of parliament, any member of county assembly. Because what is happening in those assemblies and that national assembly is shameful, where his members are being accused of accepting bribes in toilets, shutting down the revenue allocation bill, endorsing presidential memorandum to tax Kenyans 8% VAT on fuel. Shameful. Number two, we know
shameful
shameful occurrence in the parliament, not to him. We know that in this country, we also have people who call themselves Democrats, while they are not. So a referendum is not about an individual. It's not about a party. Referendum, it's a direct democracy. It is about the people of Kenya. The people of Kenya do not only include a section of a party. It includes me, you, and them. And it is wrong for somebody to come on this national broadcast and tell Kenyans that we know the type of leadership that we have in ODM and another party. I mean, let us be serious, people. I think we should be knowledgeable enough to understand that when you want to go to a referendum, it is a process that must start. And for you to start it, you must tell Kenyans what you want. Now, we have done that. They have not done that. Yeah. Number two, Aguko, let us steer this discussion about a referendum. Let us not talk about personality. Let us not talk about parties. Because if we talk about parties, we have so much to talk about, including the recently concluded elections where some people were threatened by a 27-year-old. So, having said that, our issue that we have put on the table is an issue that Kenyans have listened to. And is an issue that Kenyans, I have seen them say they would want to support. And they have demonstrated that by signing. You know, Aguko, we cannot sit and watch and wait for two individuals to come and tell Kenyans, this is what we want for you. I agree. Our party does not have members of parliament. They don't have members of assembly.
They don't have members.
To you.
They don't have members. Not even of parliament.
Regardless of it.
Just members. Registered members.
Next time,
it's just him and Aguko.
Regardless of it. Hold on. Regardless of it, whether they have members or not, they have an outline that they that is trying to put out.
When you have people who are arrogant and know nothing, there's a very big difference between people who are arrogant and know nothing. You can be arrogant, you know something, but when you're arrogant, you're empty. It's very dangerous because that one you are taking guys to a wrong path. But the thing is,
we are not going that far.
We know that the Constitution of Kenya also allows even members who are outside the public to petition under Article 119, and we know that. But you see, that is not the issue. My issue is when we start an initiative that all Kenyans agree that there is need to relook at this Constitution, including them. You cannot come and say now, it's only us who believe in that idea. And let me take you to the other point. The point is, we have seen the Senate and the National Assembly. You know, he tried being a senator, he failed. The Senate we have today, and I'm happy for him because today he would be struggling. The Senate we have today, it has no veto powers. That Senate cannot control and check the National Assembly. We have proposed, let us have a Senate that is strong, a Senate that is reduced, a Senate that can check on the conduct of the National Assembly. We see the sugar report killing the flow of the National Assembly. If we had a stronger Senate, that would have gone to the Senate. We see the revenue bill would have gone there. The presidential memorandum would have gone there. But we are saying today, we must now ensure that we even protect the devolved units further by having that Senate because they are representative. The last one, commissions that we have.
No,
you see, Aguko, if you could just allow me to finish. I don't know why you are being funny.
You've taken a lot of time talking. I'd like to hear from them also.
I've been there's a lot of interjections, you know, so let me just finish.
Okay.
We have also said that look at the counties. We already have boundary demarcations called the counties. We don't need the 290 constituencies to represent the same people of Kenya because devolution is working and we have the counties. Why don't we now use those 47 counties also as single constituencies for the purposes of parliamentary election so that we can have one man and one woman from the constituency now called county, a bigger one, representing the people at the National Assembly.
Okay.
That one,
we are
solving the issue of the gender. Yeah. And if you add that, 47 senators plus 100 100 MPs, still you shall have achieved their third.
Good. Now let me get it from you. Now there is a debate. There is a word that said that maybe the Honorable Raila Odinga is trying to find a way to make his own bed through using the excuse of the referendum. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't understand the premise of your question because which bed is this that he's making?
Presidency.
Where is the presidency? The presidency will not come through the referendum. There will be no question on that referendum paper on whether Raila Odinga should be president. I have tried my best to explain to you where it is that we have come from this position until we go to this particular position. That there are propositions that have arisen out of the identification of the 9 issues that the 2 leaders identified on the 9th of March as being important. If you are going to address the question of devolution, all these things that my brother is talking about here, it essentially entails a conversation about the Constitution, because these are creatures of the Constitution. There will be no question there on whether Raila Odinga should be president. But 2 things that I wanted to talk about. The issue of the railway. We have been consistent from the start saying that the biggest problem in this country is unsustainable debt. We are over-borrowing, and most of the time we don't see where the money is going. You remember when the country borrowed $2 billion for the from the Eurobond.
Even for the railway, we also borrowed.
Exactly, and that's what
we are
saying.
Continuing to borrow.
On the Eurobond, even up to today, the government has been unable to provide a list of the projects that were implemented using those funds.
But ODM was there.
Was where? Was where, my brother? During the Eurobond, we were the ones
leading. A few
leading.
minutes ago, you just accepted.
Just a minute.
Yes, you were.
Just a minute. I was alive. Is that what you're saying? I was alive. I was in this country. And we were
escaping the question.
You see, let me tell you, you will not distort history. You are a media house, you have all the clips, you have all the discussions surrounding the Eurobond. And you know that it was our party leader, Raila Amolo Odinga, who actually led the conversation on saying, we want to know where this money went. And up to today, that money has never been accounted for. On the railway, although it was conceived during the coalition government when Raila Odinga was Prime Minister, it was actually, by the time they were leaving, they had already signed an agreement. Jubilee came and, tore up that agreement and signed another agreement with the Chinese, which implemented the project at almost 10 times the
What did you do when you saw that happening?
When we saw that, as citizens, we have been consistent again on criticism towards implementation of the SGR. We actually called for it to be stopped, for it to be implemented in the original way that it had been thought.
But your efforts are not bearing any fruits.
Yeah, because we do not have the instruments of power. But we can do what we can do as citizens of this country to hold the government to account. That is a responsibility of an opposition party. We don't just, if it were up to me, I would go and probably tie myself onto those cranes and make sure that the railway is not built. I would like to know what you did as an individual, because what has happened in this country, unfortunately, is that Kenyans have outsourced the defense of the Constitution to one man.
You mentioned the opposition.
Yes.
Right now, is ODM currently an official opposition in the country?
The Orange Democratic Movement is an opposition party, if that's what you're asking. It is an opposition party. We are not in power.
Now, based on being the opposition party,
yes,
what role are you playing right now? You've mentioned not being able even to talk about stopping the issue of the referendum.
Yes.
Then what is the effectiveness?
Let me tell you what we are doing as an opposition, because we understand this role. We have played it for many years. It is our responsibility to keep government in check, to be able to look at the programs that they propose and to say this one will help us, this one will not help us. Even on the controversial tax, it was the responsibility of government to actually convince the opposition leadership that this tax, we had no other way of plugging the gap in the budget other than to raise that tax. And it was a difficult conversation to have. But at the end of the day, we as ODM proposed, because if you remember the statement that was read at Orange House, it was conditional support. And the conditions that we imposed, including the reduction of wastages in government, including upping the ante on the war on corruption, including ensuring that we repatriate the funds that have been looted and stashed in overseas coffers. I mean, that is what an opposition does. We don't just make noise for relevance or to make a bed, as you say.
What have you done also concerning the maize issue?
What have you done? You are a citizen of this country and you are enjoying.
But you are the leader.
Just a minute.
You see, you cannot compare the common Mwananchi.
Just a minute.
Hold on. You cannot compare the common Mwananchi with the opposition party.
Let me make my point. Because it is possible for you to have a conversation with yourself. You don't need us here. I am telling you that it is your responsibility as a citizen of this country under Article 3 of the Constitution to defend the Constitution and the ideals for which you believe in as a country.
Right. And
you should remember. You should remember.
And what about as the opposition party?
That's what I'm telling you. You should look at yourself first. What is your role as a citizen? We have been very clear that the people who were paid monies from the NCPB corruptly must be arrested because they were not the farmers that were paid. And this is an issue that is in the public domain. What I want to encourage us as Kenyans is to remember always that we are all enjoined under the Constitution to be the vanguard of this country that we call Kenya. Do not look for Sifuna. Do not look for Raila Amolo Odinga every time. He has played his part. He continues to play his part. The question is, are you doing your job?
All right, final words, because you have to wind up. Parting shot, I would like to start with you. Yes.
Thank you so much. Now, one thing that I'd like to tell Kenyans is constitutional amendment is not an event.
And of course, also mention whether the referendum is a solution. Okay, as you finish.
Constitutional amendment is not an event. It's something that we need to calm down, have a public participation, bring on board every member, including the members of the public, the leaders, the constitutional experts into place, and try to understand what changes are we making in the Constitution. Is it the right time that we are trying to do the constitutional referendum? If it's not, I believe it's not the right time, considering we have come from a painful election, 2 painful elections in the previous year. What about if we go and check the constitutional audit that was done, try and amend those issues? Secondly, we need to understand who is it benefiting in this particular place. Is it the common mwananchi, who's the Wanjiku, or are the leaders who are trying to push the constitutional referendum? And if it's benefiting Wanjiku, how is it benefiting Wanjiku? Will it reduce the cost of living? Will it increase the revenue allocation to the counties? If it increases the revenue allocation to the counties, is it supposed to increase the revenue allocation, or the counties should be dependent on their own? You know, the reason why we introduce county is for the purpose of decentralizing the resources and ensuring that each county try and ensure the building of our country's economy.
Fred, final word.
Aguko, Kenyans need the constitutional amendment.
Need it.
They need it, and they need it like yesterday. But they need it to benefit them, not to benefit a few individuals who think that by amending the Constitution, that's the only way they can become relevant, or that's the only way they can get power through backdoor. Number two, Kenyans have shown that they are a very resilient lot. Despite all the wastages, the misappropriation of funds, and the lack of better services, they have pulled through. It is their time. This is their moment. The mizigo that they are carrying today, that mizigo can only be lowered through an amendment that will ensure that there are services at the smallest unit. Number three, Kenyans would want to see a change in leadership. Not a leadership that's chest thump, not a leadership that believes that it's only them who can effect certain changes and not any other else. We must now go into a leadership that accommodates everyone, a leadership that most importantly accommodates the young people, because the young people of this country have also proved themselves that they can lead this country. Okay. If the Constitution can be amended to ensure that the burden of taxation is lowered and the common man is at ease, can do business, can afford health care, can afford a house, basics, then that Constitution amendment proposal is punguza mizigo.
Now, final word from you.
Yeah, for me, I have a lot of faith in Kenyans because Kenyans are very discerning. They have a capacity to distinguish the people who are serious and the jokers that we have in our political field. They know where to go for leadership. They will wait for that leadership. It is true that some of us, like myself, my brother said, I lost the election in Nairobi. I ran for Senate, I received 700,000 votes. That is more than some of these party leaders who ran for president ever received. In fact, if I were to donate just one constituency to the votes that some of them received, they would be more respectable.
Just have a final word, because you're going to
this is my final word. You cannot
segment.
also dictate my final word.
No.
You know, you wanted to control my answers. Now even my final word, you want to put it in my mouth. What I am saying, Kenyans have capacity to identify true leadership, and they know where to go for it. So on this referendum question, they will wait for leadership. It has not yet come.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
I was joined by, of course, Fredrick Okango, the Secretary General for Thirdway Alliance Party, Edwin Sifuna, Secretary General, ODM, and Daniel Kibet, political analyst. This has been Crosstalk. Keep the hashtag going in on our social media platforms. the hashtag Good Morning Kenya, at Ram Aguko, at KBC Television. We are winding up the show. We shall meet tomorrow, 6 a.m. on the dot for another edition of Good Morning Kenya. God bless you. Have a good morning. My name is Ram Aguko.